easier because if I just start a new file. If you're kind of trying to apply, material into this, I can create a mask so that even if I wanted to just use a brush to paint in something, I can paint over here, but nothing will appear. But oops, sorry, I'm at the mask. Change color. But I can paint in, and that mask is defining kind of where I can actually impact the scene. So this is really powerful for actually, if you're doing those photo montages, the combination of masks and brushes are really powerful, because you'd be amazed what you can get away with when you have a soft edge to something. So let's just drop this into here. So I'm kind of making this up as I go, so bear with me. Let's say I wanted the ground to be kind of the grass in here. You just stretch that until it's sort of covering roughly the right area, and then if I create a mask and then I fill that with black, it'll hide the whole thing. And then what I could do is either use my selection sets, or I can start painting this in where I want to see the grass. And that's something that's as soon as I get a bit wrong, I can come back and edit that, because it's just a flipping between black and white on the color in the mask. So I could probably got some stuff in here. I can kind of make sure I'm chopping out. So I can either use that, and then so X is quite a handy shortcut. It just flips between your foreground and background over here. So I can just cut out that stuff, and then you're kind of quite a long way there quite quickly. And then that's where being able to tweak the color of that, but just that specifically. If I wanted to push that to be a little bit more yellow, maybe desaturate it a bit, I can then also apply curves. So curves is something that I didn't know about really before. I used brightness and contrast was the equivalent that I would use most of the time. I almost never use brightness and contrast now, and the curves is really, really powerful tool. And essentially what you're seeing here in that, this is what they call a histogram, that you can actually pull up as one of the windows to view the image histogram. But essentially what the histogram represents is the far left is your darks, and the far right is the whites. So it's kind of a black to white scale, and it kind of shows you the distribution of so in this case it's saying actually there's quite a lot in this very dynamic range, but most of the image is kind of in this sort of lower quarter range. And what the curves does is just allows you to kind of tweak. So the most common edit using a curves is to kind of, if you want to increase the contrast a little bit, you kind of darken the lower quartile of that diagonal, and then they call it an S curve. So you're kind of brightening the top corner and you're darkening the bottom corner. So you can be very subtle with this. There's also this is quite powerful if you want to be really, really specific about it, but you can use this sort of finger pointer, and if there's a part of the image that you're like, actually I really want that range to be slightly brighter, you can kind of click on that and it'll select where where that sits in the dynamic range. And then I'm dragging that up. So anything that's sort of in that range, I mean, I'm just impacting the grass here, but that's just a handy kind of additional tool. But say in this case, maybe I want the grass to be darker, but not everywhere. It means that even within that layer, I can then, if I change the opacity of my brush, I can actually erase where it's impacting the, so I'm just painting in kind of black on that mask. Oh, that's another shortcut. So if you want to view the mask, you can just hold down Alt and then click on the mask, and you can actually work in here if you want. But it's quite a good way to just see, preview the mask basically. So actually, if I made that much darker, so you can see what I'm doing a bit more. You can see it's sort of all of a sudden it looks like there's a natural sort of lighting distribution across that grass, and these are just adjustment layers I can turn on or off. Same with the grass. So that's like a really good mini example of kind of using the stack to add adjustments, link them down to a particular layer, and then using the masks to achieve what you want, but where you want it. You just have like so much more control without ever having to say impact the original version. I can turn that mask off and see the original image. So those are some of the like masks and the adjustment layers and the layer stack are kind of really, really core to like getting the most out of Photoshop and giving yourself the control and backwards compatibility that you want, because it allows you to test things as well. You can go down a rabbit hole and then go, actually I don't know about that, or like you come back to a part that you worked on earlier and say, actually I want to tweak that because I've shifted the colors in a different direction. So let me just check